Right.
Does that sound?
That sounds fantastic to me. I Yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board.
You're on board. You're onboarding.
I am currently onboarding 12 passengers on a ship called Hip Hip Hooray!
I mean, does that sort of make sense? Like, what this sort of continue to do like stuff like this. You know, in like regardless of like me knowing you, if someone like you were to see this, it would be a lock because you are making videos that what you want is the same. You want the same thing.
Right.
And if all of the people that want that are together and they're all driving traffic, they're all leading processions to this new place through any route, through any possible route of communication, through family, friends, direct messaging, but as you get into social media, it starts to get conflicting because then you build like shadows around the thing that you're designing. So if you can keep things more to like not direct, but you have to you can't dress it up in language of the impersonal. Like it has to be like the most personal language. It has to be this language, this sort of language. And I'm looking at 4chan, I see that like it doesn't fit. Like 4chan is not this language. Like 4chan is outdated. It's no longer like fitting of the kind of language that free thinkers have today.
Right.
You know. But that place doesn't exist as far it's not really as far as I know, because if it existed, it would be like known by definition. Because it would have to be like a place that if you had the question of like, okay, I have something outside of the box that I really want to do, like where are those people? How do you find those people today?
Right.
And the answer is that they are disconnected. But that's not good. That's good for them. But that's not good for the world. It's just, you know what it is? It's just like, it's the same folly of the hippies, right? So the hippies were handed the keys to the city, right? They had the remedy, but in their wisdom, their short-lived wisdom, they were grateful for what they had, and they just sort of they just let it be what it was, right?
Right.
Looking back on it, that was our we should have fought. That was our not fought, but we should have gone all the way with that. We should have everybody should be like free today. Like everyone should just be like running down the street, just like so happy to be alive. Because of the energy that was at that time. But it's not what happened, because the people that had the keys to that way, they disconnected.
Right.
And the dilemma we face today is that all the people that were figuring out how to resist, they ended up becoming wise enough to see that the best thing that they can do is just disconnect and drop out and enjoy their own life outside of the matrix. But that leaves the world at risk.
Right.
Because now the world is a game of intelligence, and the people don't have we are not intelligent. Are Like, I feel like the world, because of the grip that social media has on us, we are intelligent enough to consider ourselves as like a body these days. Yet we're not intelligent enough to sort of
Disconnect.
well, not disconnect, but to
Live an embodied life.
to resist authoritarianism. What?
I was just going to say, yeah, to live an embodied life.
Sure, but also like the fact that we collectively have the intelligence to be using platforms that are not poisonous, but we are doing that, to me is a sign that something is blocking our communication, our collective intelligence, because anybody can sort of figure out on their own that we could just do things differently.
Right.
But we are being herded into this way of life in which we are every day less and less capable of doing things differently. So it seems more and more every day that YouTube will exist forever, that Facebook will exist forever, right? That Reddit will exist forever.
Yeah, I thought the whole point of the internet was to, in a way, form your own institutions and not like form these institutions of the world on the internet. Like you're not supposed to have the government on the internet. That was the whole point of having the internet, right? It was not to have traffic lights.
Well, so don't you think, right? So clearly something is, manipulating the internet.
Right.
And if we're relying on the internet to be our sort of form of thought, whether that's a wise decision or not, it's obviously essential that, like, we should not allow it to be what it is. Like, it is, we are being fooled.
Right.
And we're being fooled, and what we could do is just create art and be happy and make a little life. Or we could say, hey, we're being fooled, and we need to fucking, this needs to end. That could be our fucking attitude. We can be like, hey, this needs to stop.
Right.
And my feeling is that is what was going to happen. But every single person that wanted to make that happen realized that it was a lot better to not do that and just do whatever else. Because it's sort of like it's sort of ugly.
Right.
But at the same time, like, what's more, like, this fucking shit is ugly, dude. Like, we have all the potential of the universe, and we are the tool we use for like everything is a trash heap. It's just it's disgusting.
Right.
And, you know, that's fine. Like, a disgusting thing can exist. But, like, what's going to prevent, like, if the reason why it can exist is, oh, people doing the right thing will lead humanity anyways. Like, they'll raise kids that know the right way, and so will they, and everything will be okay in the long run. You know, but like that can be easily weeded out if with the amount of, you know, sort of you know, the population control, like there's a problem. Like the people should not be confined in this way. Like we have created a prison.
Right.
And I mean, the only attitude I can have about that is like being aware of this prison. I have to use the you know, the prison break methods that I know, and I have to, you know, share them.
Wait, are you referencing the show Prison Break?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
No, but I mean, you know, it's just strange. It's like these realizations, they should have been realized by hordes of people by now. You know, like there should be like millions of projects that like, there's no reason why the internet should why we didn't get away from those platforms like half a decade ago.
Right. Well, I feel like there are probably groups of people, particularly in Europe, that are working on creating freedom platforms or whatever that are networked, but yeah.
Who uses them?
Who uses them?
Nobody uses them. That's the problem.
Right.
Right? Like there is, like technically it all exists. But the thing we haven't figured out is how do we get there? Like how does it actually become like de facto? How do people start using free platforms as like the norm?
Right.
Where you don't go on and there's like one post of that day.
Right.
You know, like it has to be like, it doesn't have to be like massive. What it has to be is it has to be like interesting. Right? It's quality. You know, if there was a place that you could go and there's you know, a show, like an idiosyncratic radio show, there's, you know, a Socratic art like seminar show, there's like study groups, there's you know, like writing workshops, I don't fucking know, like anything. And there's people talking about like you know, homesteading and all that stuff, but you know, I think what matters is that, and this is something that is really hard to, you know, think of how it would be designed, but I think it has to be somewhere that's not too quiet and not too loud. And it has to, you know, feel like you kind of know the people there. You know, some of them you know a little more, some of them you know you kind of see them at the corner of your eye. You know, it should feel like a space that you can sort of like curiously like investigate. You know, and you can sort of like look around and be like, you know, what's under here, and you know, let's talk to this guy and see where he, you know, like what if the internet was like, oh, here's all these cool places, you know, that you can journey to.
Right.
That's not really what it feels like. You know, and yeah, like the closest thing to that is Wikipedia. That's you know, that's maybe like yeah, it's maybe interesting. You know, because Wikipedia is like there's tons of information, but it's not really put together. Whiskey, you come up here. Come on, buddy. Wikipedia has this quality about it, right? Like, the reason why it's always interesting to go to Wikipedia is because it is well put together, and you know, it's not like every stupid thought about a subject, but it's like the most considered a really good way to learn about anything.
Right.
You know, what?
No, I just said right.
Right. Like when you're at St. John's and you pull up the Wikipedia article on a like philosophical concept that when you read the Wikipedia, you're like, oh, this is the difference between like wisdom and knowledge. You're like, oh, like these people say like, you know, all Wikipedia says is like the form good and the line and blah blah blah. It's like it's not getting into a like realm of wisdom. It's not taking you on a journey into the you know depths of thought and like revelation and you know questioning that reading those dialogues and talking with people does.
Right.
Right? And you could never get that sort of experience on Wikipedia because every piece of information you look at is in low resolution. Everything's being talked about in the most general way possible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But the internet should be a place for organizing, like, well, wisdom. Like, isn't the whole point of spiritual, like, pursuit and progress and, like, mentorship is to help other people become wise?
That's what I thought.
And isn't, like, with the internet, should the ability to sort of disseminate anything that we want. That should be like this like super amazing freedom that it provides, is that any person in the world at any time can say, I want to connect this like set of ideas into the world in a way that other people can find. You know, like a library that everyone is doing all the time. Right? Like it's this, you know, every website is on a shelf somewhere, and you can, you know, instantly go to that shelf and pull up any book.
Right.
You know, so that idea sounds like the most amazing. If you told that to someone in the 1500s, they would like jump out of a window. We have that tool, and we don't use it that way.
Yeah, they would jump out of the window. Yeah.
We have an infinite anything instantly. But everything that we access, or nearly everything, is this really low resolution version of the thing that we intended to access.
Right, and turns out that 90% of the internet is pornography.
Right, and pornography, I don't know if you noticed, but that is getting like this weird overhaul.
Right,
Pornography has gotten really like controlled.
right.
Um,
For the better or for worse?
for the worse, it has,
You mean like it has been commercialized and like corporatized?
yeah, it's lost, it's like, for me, like pornography, to like, you know, in my early days, was a free speech platform. Like, I thought that the porn universe was actually like a beautiful reflection of the freedom of the internet,
Right.
right? It was this sort of like raucous, wild place where you could do anything and be anybody and just fucking like, you're off of, you know what it was? You know what it felt like? It felt like you were outside the matrix when you were on a porn website. You felt like you were with your fellow man and you were celebrating life together. And you read some comments, you know, she's got nice fucking tits, and the other guy would be like, yeah, dude. And like, but like, it felt mysteriously genuine. Like, it felt like porn websites were like a community. You know, every website felt like more of a community, but especially like porn websites held on to that for the longest.
Right.
Nobody would ever hang out on like SQs or anything like that.
Mm.
They would never like socialize on there, except for like some like, you know, some old, you know, dude in his basement. You know, but not it's lost its like innocence.
Right.
Right? Now it feels like you're at like TSA. Like everything is TSA now. That's my belief, and that's what I'm resisting.
Yeah, I think, yeah, right. I think that metaphor is apt.
Right. And so my idea is like, what's the least TSA thing that you can build? Right? What's something that can, you know, proliferate and become many other things that is destined to remain as un-TSA-like as possible throughout eternity. Like, what's something that you could build in this time that when all else fails, there's always like a fallback plan for humanity, for intelligence. Like a system that, like a connected communications network, you know, that's a little bit more advanced than ham radio, in which you can, you know, broadcast and disseminate information and upload things, and also there's like, you know, this is the most important part, and this is why I was talking about 4chan and all that. There needs to be a sort of like agora. You know, just like the reason why the place in Italy functions, the La Barca, the reason why it can exist is because it's in a village that's famous. So tourists come every day. So the village will always survive because it'll always be known for what it is. And so it'll forever, you know, be supplied by its tourism.
Right.
Just as with a sort of like rebellious place in the world, the way that it could always survive is that it has it has a melting pot. It has an agora of some sort that is a place that people flow through and see things. And nothing is targeting them. They can peruse at their own will. It's like they're in a library, right? If the world was like a library and you could just select things, without them trying to select you, like it's like an agora. You walk around. If you want to look at someone's shop or talk to your friend and sit down next to them, or and so forth, like join a conversation, you can do so at your leisure.
Right.
And it's a wondrous thing. It's an abundant thing. There's life all around, and there's so many things that you can do. And nothing is competing for your attention, but more, it's all splayed out in front of you for you to enter the. It's like a chaos. It is a chaos in a way, but it's a sort of predictable chaos. We could say, well, there's always going to be someone playing music there. There's always going to be somebody selling something. There's always going to be someone having a conversation. There's always going to be somebody playing. Somebody making art. And if you can be in the midst of that as well. So it's like I want to, busk. Where am I going to busk? I'm going to busk in a place that's like an agora. I'm going to busk in a sort of middle place that people make confluence in. But beyond busking, let's say the reason why you want to busk is that you're singing songs that spread a message. You want to help people liberate their lives and live in a way, more in accordance with love. And so you need to spread that message, right? Where you spread a message, you need a place that is not predictable yet is predictable. A place that is always going to have other people to witness, whether or not they agree with it or they think that you did a good job, right? And it has to be a place in which you can do a bad job, and still be seen, but perhaps it should also be a place that if you do a really good job, then I don't know if it's like everyone gets equal attention or not, or how that. 4chan is sort of that way, and it works pretty well, but it's not organized enough to, if 4chan were organized enough, they would have created the next thing, because they had the intelligence amongst themselves, but they didn't sort of put two and two together as a group.
Right.
So I guess by definition, what needs to be made is something that by design creates its post-assessor.
A what?
That creates its own offspring.
Right.
Right? That's the only way to perpetually resist tyranny. Is that it has to create something which is not like itself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's generative and that. Right. Yeah. That. Yeah. I thought that was the definition of technology, right? That you could create something that was unlike any other thing prior to that. But internet is a weird thing. It's like it's becoming more. I don't know, codified and ossified. That's the word.
Ossified?
Calcified.
Calcified. Right, exactly. Right?
Right.
it's a stale system.
Right.
And, so we can use that. We can say, we can understand systems become stale inevitably, no matter how well it's designed. Right?
Right.
So perhaps the only way to design a system that reaches equilibrium is to create a system which, by design, understands its own instability, its own mortality, and so it must reproduce. It's in its DNA, it's in its very nature to need to produce. Whereas existing systems, they don't have that evolution. Right? Their philosophy is I need to become as fast as possible.
Mm.
I need the most views. Right?
Right.
But the real energy that is immortal is I need to, I need to inseminate. Right? I need to inseminate myself into the world.
Right.
Right? I need to take what I am and make it a part of the cosmos. And every single being needs to do that. Or interesting, it might be every single male needs to do that.
Mm. Right. Because that is the act of creation, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's the act of creation, the non-biological act of creation.
Right. Yeah. The thing is, like, right now, right, like,
It's the process.
right. In the situation that you're describing, people have agency of their participation in the cycle of life and death, whereas right now it's sort of like, I don't know, it's like Matrix. It's like things die off and you're like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, right. I mean, think about it this, like, how we are, we shouldn't think about doom ever, unless it's for a very specific purpose. And at this point, the purpose is, oh wait, like the doom is, I'm saying that the doom is an information matrix, dude. Right? The gap is closing. It's like we have to get through the gate of freedom, while the gate is still closing. It's closing slowly.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we still have to run. Because the things that I'm talking about doing were so easy to do a few years ago. That's what's making me concerned. If this show that I'm doing now was done a year or two ago, it would have spread like wildfire. Like,
the radio broadcast show?
What?
The radio broadcast show?
Yeah, well, just because that, like, by design, is sort of how I made it, and I realized, like, I'm sort of realizing just now, like, the reason why, I think that it's not, like, I don't think the audience is still there, the audience that I made it for.
Mm.
Yeah. Right, and that's the problem. Like the audience, the people, the revolutionaries, how do you communicate with them collectively? I could find each individual community eventually, or maybe not. Maybe they're becoming more and more disconnected from one another. Right? It's the connections it's the way in which things are interconnected should be sort of, they should be more effortlessly connected. Whereas now, if I want to explore human thought on the internet, that's not what the result that you get. If I go on the internet and I'm a curious person, I'm not going to be met with, like, most likely, it's not going to respond to my curiosity in a way that's like, better than exploring a library.
Mm.
It is and it isn't, right? Because technically, you can still do everything, right? Like you can message any person, you can, find any book, you can read anything, you can find a lecture from any school,
Right.
But I want that, and do I get that from the internet? No, I don't. Like I try to. I like follow all of these like educational things, and I try to like curate it as like so diligently. Like I'm pretty keen on these on the nature of the spirit of algorithms, and I just see how poorly designed it is through that. Like Spotify is a great example. Spotify,
do you have a Spotify?
I have Spotify now again, so I got it for free.
Right.
But Spotify, they just cycle you through the same bullshit over and over and over again. What?
Yeah, right. But it's packaged through new playlists.
What?
But it's packaged through new playlists. That's the difference. It's the same stuff, but it's just like a new flashy cover on a playlist by Spotify.
It doesn't, and what I've realized with this show is that it doesn't take much to make music really significant and powerful. Something that I said in the last episode was I just want to get out of the way, basically, and allow the music to speak for itself. And then my place is to be the space in between, really, but the point of a radio show is for the music to speak. And I noticed, the more I was doing it, I was playing just Bob Dylan songs, so fucking greatest hits, and records that I thought, were just casual. They're just oh, everyone knows these records, these are just basics, but the way in which they were coming up in the format of a show was so significant that
Right.
I realized the difference between that and sitting in a room with a bunch of friends and everyone's just fighting, oh, cue up this song, oh my god, I want to listen to this song, and you're just playing music, right? And it's just this thing, but when I am trying to, you know, when I'm trying to create this like performing arts experiment of a sort of like avant-garde show. Yeah, like a song that I've heard 100 times is like the most when I place it sort of delicately into the day and into the moment and into the show and into like the context of the show. It just has like just like nearly infinite layers of depth that that I now I feel like I can't even go without that. Like I see now what the difference is between genuine experience and consumption.
Right.
It's thoughtfulness, right? Spotify gives you the illusion that it's like DJing you all these songs, but it's just using a super simple algorithm to find like your nearest neighbor in a way that it can store it in the cheapest way, right? Everything's done in this very anti-human way. Everything's cheapest, most efficient.
Right. It's maximum modernity.
Right. Is every single decision is not designed towards human interest. Because of that, you get a result. You get a shitty end result. You get something that doesn't show you anything. It ruins it's worse than that. It ruins everything. When you start to rely on it, every single it's like, oh, I'm so interested in this song, like, and I look into it on Spotify, and it brings me to like, oh, this is like alternative folk, and then it plays all these other songs that sound like it, but they sound like it in such superficial ways that it ruins the song and all of those other artists and the entire experience. Like, it makes you feel like music doesn't even matter.
Right.
And that's just it's the way in which the meaning is weaved. You're just listening to jazz. You're not going on a spiritual quest through like placing yourself in the setting of the time period and like what was going through the minds of the artists and like how it connects to other genres and other artists at that time and how it's all a part of like the mandala of music history. You're not getting any of that. Yes, like you can read biographies on Spotify, but there's not a single music platform that is like capable even of teaching anybody anything. And that before the internet age was left to read and to make it for people.
Mm.
It's a very like active. It's like they might say like one sentence, and she'll name the songs, but the amount of thought that went into that segueing was probably like, it probably took them that song to say something thoughtful between the songs,
Right.
And that's you get into this experience where you turn a good radio station, you can turn it off and listen to it for hours, and you're being led through all these worlds, and it's all significant, and it's all like it's beautiful, and it's mystifying, and it's thought provoking. you know, and then the hosts, they like, the more time you spend there, the more you feel like you're like home, like you're part of something, and that, you know, there's others out there, and that's a special feeling.
Right.
And I feel like it's mostly a myth now. It's like, maybe it's perhaps like one of the only like mythological feelings that I really care about is this like this mythological hero of just like a radio show that is sort of like a place, like an area's, or it's like it's a bunch of people. It's like it's their thing, you know. They're like, this is like, you know, this is, you know, how I know. You know, this is what grounds. You know, I'm communicating with the world and at large, and a specific sort of community that is really significant to my, you know, justice, my sense of, you know, how the world ought to be, how we ought to be thinking about things. And I find this radio show, and it's talking about things in a way that I connect with, in a way that's not superficial at all, in a way that I'm listening to the show and I feel like I'm listening to my best friend, you know, tell me exactly what we both think, you know, but just put it out there in the best words, you know. If you can have that feeling, that's like, then you can go and do anything. You can work at Starbucks, but you know that you're connected with the minds that are working towards, like, you know, let's keep it real, you know.
Right.
But my problem is, if I want that right now, if I want to be like, okay, I need to get connected with the network that's keeping it real, what is it? Is it a radio station? Is it someone's live stream? Is it a Discord server? Is it, you know, something else? Is it a place? You know, or, you know what? And the reason why I'm so troubled by this is, how would anybody find that?
Right. Yeah.
You know, radio made a lot of sense because you could just, you know, look at the stations, and if there's like an edgy college radio station nearby, you were connected to that energy. You were connected to the rebelliousness, you know, which is the real spirit of the people. That there's no channel. Like, where is that rebelliousness? A genuine one, not an Alex Jones brand, you know, not a BitChute conspiracy video brand, not a Twitter fucking, you know, circle jerk.
Right.
Like, where are there just people that are like, this is like, you know, we're down to earth, we're fighting the good fight, like, we care about art and like good music and like interesting conversations and culture and like raising our kids well and like building the world better and like, and let's talk about it in a way that's not like, oh, I'm such a good person, like, we're gonna make the world a better place. It's like, no, it's like, we're like, all right, we're like real, and we're like, hey, like, you know, all right, we gotta do something. Like, all right, let's go, like, you know, this city, we gotta build this, you know, fucking homeless shelter or whatever. Like, it's like doing things, and it's getting to work, and it's being like, all right, like, good morning, you know, home city, like, let's wake up, let's get started with our day. Here's our song, like, you know, yesterday we talked about, you know, truth and beauty, and today we're, you know, we're gonna meet with these artists and talk about it some more, you know, and it's like, it's all an imperative, and what does creating that narrative, but for all the love of all the people, all around the station is what was the station. It's been journalism. It's you're a psychopath through the present moment for for an unknown sort of audience.
Right.
You're speaking to those out there, those in the masses, in the agora, or in the radio waves, driving down the highway. You're sort of getting in. There's a little bit of, in all the different sectors, there's a little bit of, it's disseminated, throughout. That was what was so special about radio before the FCC, before it just became, what it is.
Right.
And that's what I think that's where the internet got its form, right? Like that's the idea of like early web pages. I think borrowed their sort of tone from that, right? Because what was people's idea of like hello world? Like,
right.
where else did people conceptualize like how does one speak to the world?
Right.
It was radio. Like it was radio, and then it was television. Right.
Right. And I mean, yeah. And so the same thing. Were you saying that the same thing happened to both radio and television, right? Like they both got corrupted in a way, and lost its true
like
purpose.
Channels that are blocked.
Right.
So their property. Like it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars if I try to broadcast a FM radio signal.
Probably at least tens.
Money. Like,
Right.
it is a real problem, right? Like there's only so many wavelengths, right?
Right.
It's totally understandable. Like that humanity's like, hey, we need to like obviously if people start like communicating freely, everything's just gonna be noise, right? Like it's gonna be impossible. Like radio is useless. Everyone's broadcasting on 97.9. 97.9 is just white noise. But that doesn't mean. But then there's this problem of like, okay, how do you broadcast to a medium-sized area, right? Because the internet is designed for like worldwide connection, and land is designed for within a building.
Right.
And for like that frequency range is really good when we project to like a neighborhood, but that's illegal, right? Unless you're on a ham radio. No, like it's like that's like out of the question. Like I can't start a radio station really, like one that would matter, unless Unless that's what it was. Unless it was like, everyone, we're gonna be on ham radios.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That's because anybody can jam those signals at any time too.
Right. You're speaking literally or metaphorically? Like what?
What, ham radios?
No, like jamming the signals.
Yeah, all you have to do to jam a signal is broadcast over that signal.
So what's the point of paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars?
What do you mean?
If it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars to,
There's a giant, government agency that if you are jamming especially an FM radio signal, like between 86 and 109 or whatever, then they will find you and throw you in jail.
Jesus Christ, I didn't know that.
The FCC, their job is to target anybody that infiltrates radio waves in any way. Because I thought about this. I thought about just doing a guerrilla, like a Wellesley radio station or something.
Right.
And you can't do that. And the reason why that's significant is because really what it is not that it's not really that radio is what matters. It matters that it's a thing that people stumble upon. It matters that any person who is scanning through stations is going to find a medley of information. And that's real freedom. That's real freedom of thought.
Mm-hmm.
That is what allows somebody to, say, have you seen Good Morning America? Good Morning Vietnam.
Right.
Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm. I watched that. That's with Robin Williams.
Yeah. Right. So Good Morning Vietnam, the reason why he is able to be this heroic figure that spreads positivity into Vietnam and into the soldiers, really, is because because he has this medium.
Right.
And the problem is what?
Well, he's controlled. Right?
Sure,
He's
right.
censored. That's the problem.
Right. He is censored, right? There's something we can take from it. We are perhaps like him. We perhaps have to find a way to communicate. This is maybe the answer is to find a way to communicate that is within the box, that is at war with the box.
Right.
One way, or you find a way to just, just hang out outside of the box. And the place that you meet is outside of the box. For example, say there was a place that was like the Village in Italy, but it was, say, maybe 4 times the size. So you have about 1,000 people living there or something, or less than that. But say you have 250 people, and say at that place you have a radio station. In that radio station, you have several radio stations, and or whatever. It's anybody can broadcast to that community.
Right.
Or say it's 500 people or 5,000 people, or just any community that's designed with this the understanding of needing that outlet, if it's designed knowing that, then it's going to be designed in such a way that it protects that.
Right.
I mean, maybe the problem with the founding fathers is that they didn't know what the world would look like with new technology.
Right.
Maybe they just weren't able to foresee the types of problems that we would have in the future, because they've transcended law, right?
Right.
These problems have nothing to do with law. These problems are, outside of the law.
Right.
They are and they aren't. I don't know, it's weird. As the technology progresses, so do the problems change. It's a complex system as long as there's people trying to control it, because, if people are trying to control, space, then now that means, well, if the solution was, okay, we can all create our own satellites, and now space is being controlled, okay, now we can't all create our own satellites. It's like...
Right, it's like a game of whack-a-mole.
What's going on with that, but that's just an example of how, yeah, so yeah, so I think it makes sense. You can totally disseminate information in a way that's beautiful and free once you have a significant amount of people that are standing in that system. But how do you disseminate the information that creates that system? If the channels for